to 30 minutes maximum. And we just want to make sure that you guys jump on this call, learn, and then go take this information and do something with it, whether it be talking to your clients, your prospects, your sphere, your database, your social media. If we did this every single week and we became known as the real estate expert of choice, then we're going to continue to have more clients. And so that's what this call is all about. So Angie and Nikki, I'll let you guys take it away, and I'll make you host here in a second, Ange.
Perfect.
So you can live stream.
Perfect. Then I can get the live stream going while I do that. Nikki, feel free. I know that I ran into a bunch of new agents as well that I invited to this call. So I'd love to for you to just jump right in.
Awesome. Well, good morning, everyone. Happy Monday, as always. Mortgage interest rates, you can see the big smile on my face. We are anticipating and waiting for the Fed meeting next week. In lieu of that, or as that comes along, or as that comes up, interest rates have been slowly declining. So we are really only locking people in right now if they're close to closing, and we don't see any benefit for waiting. So a lot of people are talking about refinancing, and we'll kind of get into that and kind of how you guys can be experts as far as, you know, information that you can give to your clients, or even just talking to them about the situation that they've been in. The big news, of course, is going to be what's the Fed going to do with those interest rates? Right now, we know that they are going to drop. There is an absolute 100% certainty that they are going to drop next week. The question is how much? Is it going to be a quarter? Is it going to be a half? According to all the data that we have, you know, all the experts, everything from that standpoint, everyone feels like the Fed is really far behind as far as dropping this interest rate in the first place. So we're really hopeful that it'll be at least 0.5%. If that does that, we're looking at interest rates well into the 5% mark. If it's just a quarter, we're probably going to be in that upper 5 to lower 6. Right now, depending on qualifying, you can get, I've been locking people in at 5.875, 5.75. So you can get down to those lower interest rates right now, and you know, really get your clients, you know, really searching for even more of a house, if that makes sense. Remember that obviously as interest rates go down, monthly payments go down, so affordability goes up. And we're kind of in that window when once those interest rates starts dropping, the cost of the house is going to go up. So we have to kind of balance that with our buyers right now and make sure that they understand, like, now might be a good time to secure a purchase agreement with a 45-day close so that they can kind of ride that interest rate all the way down during that 45 days. So really good news on interest rates. And, you know, like I said, just the anticipation of the Fed dropping the rate, and then how we're going to see those interest rates react to that. So all good news from that standpoint. So a couple of things I want to talk about for, you know, on the streets, or when you guys are talking to buyers or talking to clients, past clients who you have helped purchase a home in the last 24 months. There is going to be conversation and talk about refinancing, probably because, you know, their lenders are going to be calling them saying, hey, we locked you in at 7.625. Interest rates are now down at 5.875. This is probably a good time for you to move. And just having the knowledge on your guys' end to be that voice and that expert and say, okay, how can I help you? How can I show you what your value of your home has done in the last 2 years? You know, to help that client make the decision on whether or not now is the right time to refinance for them. There have been some you know, definitely areas, obviously, across everywhere where there's been appreciation of homes. There's been areas where we're starting to see a decline in value as well. So it's just making sure that where your client is and understanding that, you know, through a CMA or anything else that you can offer of value to them, that can help them with the process that they're going to be talking about, they're going to be asking about. A lot of times from what I find is that when I talk to somebody about refinancing their house, it's always, most of the time, it leads into another conversation to a referral or somebody else where, you know, you can get more prospects and more people that you can help along the way. And so just a reminder in that way, if they do have any questions about refinancing, obviously rely on their lender or myself to answer any of those questions. But just, we're coming into this time where it's going to be a lot of activity. Interestingly enough, though, kind of like fun fact. So there's a tracking system for mortgage applications across the US that happens on a weekly basis. And last week was the lowest amount of mortgage applications since 2008. Lowest week of mortgage applications since 2008. So that goes to show you how many people are just waiting on the fence for this Fed rate drop. to start applying for these mortgages or start applying for their refinance. So and that includes purchase activity too. So it's really interesting to see that everybody's just sitting and waiting, and the mortgage applications are down so low. We're talking like post 2008 crash low, so it's just interesting to see that those applications, people are anticipating, people are waiting. So just, being in the know about those situations is going to be important these next couple of weeks.
Absolutely. And anyone have any questions, or anyone want to address anything mortgage related at all with Nikki? I know it's a great time and a great call. And if you're thinking it, I'm sure someone else on this call or someone listening is. So feel free to come off mute.
Looks like Shannon might have a question.
I have, just a quick question. So if everyone starts gearing back up with applying and buying more, is it gonna like battle against inflation again? Is it just gonna be a cycle event?
I think it's just cyclical in general from an inflation standpoint. We will see some uptick a little bit from that standpoint, but it'll settle right back down. I know that as the applications increase and as the refinances keep coming and all these things that are starting to happen, we should see things level out pretty well. What's interesting is I haven't really seen this in the past, but a lot of experts are relying on the 2-year treasury numbers right now to make predictions about what the Fed's going to do from an interest rate standpoint, or what they should do from an interest rate standpoint. I haven't really seen that before. Normally they really, aren't all that comparable, as far as what the 2-year treasury is doing and how it affects where the Fed is. But it's interesting to see that now they're starting to pull out those numbers and starting to do that comparison to try to predict what's going to happen, not only from a Fed standpoint, but from that inflation standpoint. Not a lot has been said about it, but it's interesting to see that they're starting to make those initial comparisons. So the answer is, yeah, inflation should go down, but we never know, with how things are going to happen. It's one of those things where we've seen the exact opposite of what should happen. So it's just one of those things that we're going to have to follow. Any other questions? I know it's all been about refinances today, but it's one of those things where it's the buyers are going to start to come out as well too. Once that interest rate drops, you're going to see an increase in buyers as well. And just knowing how to help them as the cost of the housing increases as well.
Let's see. 2 people came off mute. Do one of you have a question? General Rowe?
Yeah, Kevin. So, very, very useful information that you shared. Thank you for that. Couple of questions. One is that there's a cost to refinance as well. So how should my potential customers think about it? And, what's the easy formula to, recommend them whether to refinance now versus not? So that is one. And then you said about the number of mortgage applications coming down, just like 2008. So that's very interesting. Just curious, how is it going to trend, from last week to this week, or last month to this week, right? So I'm just trying to understand how big is the drop, and get a sense of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, really, really great question. So the cost to refinance is going to be similar to what you will find to purchase a home. It's going to be a little bit less expensive just because you're not having to sometimes you don't even need to do an appraisal. And it all depends on, maybe you reset up that escrow account and maybe you don't, but the actual cost of the refinance is usually about 1% or 1.5% of the loan amount, is what we use for a general rule. And that's not counting resetting up that escrow account. The other thing that we do when we talk to clients about refinancing and whether or not it makes sense for them, we run numbers and scenarios to draw out not only the cost of the refinance and how that affects the loan on a long-term basis, but what is that loan going to be doing over the next 12 months? We're kind of in a cycle right now where we're expecting rates to kind of continue to decline over the next 12 months. And it's really targeting or pinpointing that time where it makes sense, or what that interest rate is on that loan that's going to make sense for them to refinance versus the cost of it and what the options are as far as buying down that interest rate. So for example, let's say you had a client, a borrower who had a 7.5% interest rate on a $300,000 loan. They're more likely going to be ready or able to refinance when that interest rate hits 6.5 or 6 3/8, a full point difference from where they're at now, then it's going to start to make sense because the cost savings, the interest savings over time, things like that are going to start to make sense. With that being said, that 7.5% borrower, if they're going to be able to get down into the fives, then it's really going to start to make sense over the next 2 or 3 months here to refinance, because we're not only looking at the cost of the refinance, we're talking about at how long are they staying at 7.5% before that interest rate drops low enough for it to make sense for them. So in other words, how many more payments at 7.5% are we going to be looking at here if we want to ride that interest rate down to that 5.5% mark, for example? And so there's all these different scenarios and all these different numbers that we look at to make sure that that refinance, the cost of it is actually worth the savings in a very short amount of time. Like what's their break even point is what we talk about a lot. With that being said, the mortgage applications, I mean, we're talking, I would expect for them to come back up this week and into next week, especially into next week, as we see that Fed rate drop. I think we're going to see a huge influx in mortgage applications from that standpoint on. And then that's just going to increase back up to what we would call normal numbers in the next couple months.
I love it. And for those that weren't on the call a couple of weeks ago, can you give the stat again for every point that the interest rate goes down, how many buyers enter the market?
Yep. So on average, for every 1% of mortgage rate drop, about 5 million new eligible borrowers in your price range come into the market. So, well, they don't come into the market, but they're eligible in your price range. Yeah.
So, and I love that. And if there's any other questions, definitely go. But I want to know real quick too, what are you doing your social media on this week? Is it all around this, and then also let the people that haven't been on the call before know how they can, find you and help and use your social media to help boost.
Yes. So it will be about these interest rate drops this week. It will be probably about maybe just some scenarios that I come across and some useful information. Like I said, it's a really right now from a social media standpoint, it's really hard to talk about interest rates only because we're anticipating the drop. So it's one of those things where the focus will probably be a little bit more on other factual things or other tips or things like that, because once that interest rate drops, obviously, then the social media will go crazy on that. So, but if you do want to see my social media or use it, you can share it, you can stitch it, you can, view it, whatever you need to do. And it's all shareable. It's on TikTok, Mortgage from MN to AZ. And then also on Instagram is the same. And then it's also on Facebook is under my personal name. So you guys can find me on social media. All my stuff is shareable. You can, just comment on it, stitch on it, whatever you need to do.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you for that as well.
Could you say that name one more time? Sorry.
Yep. Mortgage from MN to AZ.
And Nikki is available across the country in all different states. And if she personally is not in your state, she has an amazing partner, business partner that would be available. Yeah.
And Rahul, I am actually licensed in California, so I can help any of your clients in California as well.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah.
What other questions do we have for Nikki while we have her here? And again, her name's Nikki Erickson.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I can put my phone number in here too for you
you
guys in case you do have any questions. Feel free to text me, call me, whatever you guys need to do.
Yeah, and if you can put your handle as well, Insta or yeah.
Perfect. Wonderful. Well, and I think I just love, again, all the information and just being on top of it. So I encourage all of you agents on here, go back, and if you don't know your past clients and their interest rate or really what's happened in the last couple of years, take a moment to do that, because that's power. And I know a lot of times we just let closings go and we're on to the next, or we're running, full speed ahead. So slow down to speed up, because it's really important to know what just happened in your business over the last couple of years, because this could be key. And again, I always talk to the agents that I coach about this, it's not only the person in front of you, but it's the 262 people behind that usually on average every person knows. So it's not them, who do they know? So this can be far reaching even further than just your past clients in sphere. So definitely take the initiative. You all showed up here today. So that's step one, is just getting the information and being informed, and definitely come back every week because it's such a powerful phone call. And Nikki, Candace wanted me, she couldn't come because she has her groundbreaking ceremony at 1, but she just wanted me to pass on that you've showed up here consistently for well over a year, if not 2. We appreciate you so much and what you give back. It's just
Oh,
phenomenal.
thank you.
And you do it all just because that's who you are.
Yeah, thank you. And just an FYI to give you a little bit of a, just tidbit. I actually reached out to 52 of my prior clients last year, 52 families last year, just with a text basically saying, hey, here's what's going on. This is something that we're going to want to look at as far as interest rate goes over the next couple months. When would be a good time to talk? And out of those 52 people, I got 14 calls. So 14 people scheduled for calls. So it does work to reach out to those past clients and make that connection and get those, get those things and provide value from that standpoint.
Love it. Good. Well, any other questions before we go, or anyone want anything at all from Nikki or myself?
I have one more quick one.
Sure.
So I don't know where I read somewhere, but like I read where, I don't know how valid it is, but lenders are already lowering the interest rates. So in the event that the feds don't lower to 0.5, it could potentially actually go up. Is that true, or am I reading
So
wrong?
that's actually a really good question. So when we talk about when the Fed met in August, they basically said now is the time that we need to start dropping that interest rate. The market will respond to things like that by starting to lower that interest rate in anticipation of what the Fed is going to do next week. So basically all the improvement that we've seen from August till now, or August, I think it was 15th is when the meeting was, till now has been baked into the market in the anticipation of the Fed dropping that interest rate a quarter. Now, if they drop it 0.5%, then we're going to see an even further, obviously, improvement in interest rates. But what we'll see into next week is we'll see these kind of like this decline in interest rates and then an evening out in anticipation for the meeting. And if the meeting happens and they only drop by a quarter, we're going to keep seeing those interest rates at that kind of like that steady level. There's always going to be a little bit of volatility up and down, on the daily, but as far as overall consistency, we're going to see it keep riding that consistent pattern until the next meeting in October, which would be their next opportunity to drop. So that actually is a really good question. We're seeing that improvement, what we call baked into the market already.
All right.
So you didn't read that wrong.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I think you're on mute, Angie.
Sorry. Anyone else have anything for Nikki before we go? I know I said it's 20 minutes. We got started a little bit late, so we want to just take this extra couple minutes. But definitely want to honor all your time of who showed up. All right. Well, Nikki, did you get your information out there? I don't see it in the chat.
Yep, I'm just doing it right now.
Yeah. I'll let you get that in there. So everyone, you can take a picture of it or copy it quickly. Because it's just so important. And Nikki is so responsive. You can text her, you can call her, email her. Again, her social media is open to anyone. Stitch it, duet it, rip it off, make it your own. That is why she's here, is to help us elevate. And more time than ever, we need to be showing up as the informative and being right and having the information and educating, educate, and get in front of your sphere, your past clients, your potential clients, and show them that you know what you're talking about and you're there to help them through the process. And Nikki is here to help us do that and look a lot better. So thank you so much again, Nikki. You're so
Absolutely.
All right, everyone, till next week, same time, same place, same link. If you need anything in the meantime, reach out to Nikki or myself. We're here and happy to help.
All right.
Bye-bye.